So, Insomniac just released a new 10-minute long gameplay segment for Spider-Man 2, and it looks incredible. It's been so long since the first trailer back in September of 2021 that for a while it almost felt like this was the only picture that existed of the game. It was used for billboards, the back of the tie-in book. Everywhere I looked, I couldn't escape this one specific frame. And so I'm so excited that we're finally able to see a little bit more from the game before it releases later this year. And Insomniac even revealed what the official box art's going to look like for the game.
Oh, god damn it!
This video is brought to you by Skillshare. When Peter Parker was starting out as Spider-Man, he had to figure out a lot of things on his own, like the swinging, designing the costume, and how to make his web shooters. And that's why the idea of him mentoring Miles in this upcoming game is so interesting to me, because now Miles has the resources that can help him learn and grow even more. And you can get resources just like that with Skillshare. With its wide variety of courses and classes, any skill or goal you want to achieve, Skillshare can help make it possible, whether that's film, animation, photography, music, art, you name it. And it even has courses that help you turn what may seem like a hobby into a true and fulfilling career path. Lately, I've been experimenting with mixing my 3D art with more traditional 2D art, and to do that, I need to have a decent understanding of both mediums, and so the course 3D Techniques with Digital Painting by Marco Bucci has been super helpful in letting me apply what I know about tools like Blender into a more traditional 2D digital painting landscape. And I really like the effect that it's had on what I'm able to make. Starting new hobbies and trying new things can be intimidating, but you can take the pressure off by starting small with just step-by-step basics or even just productivity and wellness tips. The first 1,000 people to use my link down below will get a 1-month free trial and access to Skillshare's entire library of courses, and thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. The first thing that they showed us was a reveal trailer for Kraven the Hunter. We'd known Kraven was going to be a major character since the initial announcement, but this is the first time we get to see his design, and personally I really like it. They managed to take the lion vest element from his classic design and modernize it just a little bit to make it work without overdoing it. Also, that chest hair though, god damn. Overall, I like the direction that they're going with Kraven. The thing that kind of weirds me out a little bit is that it seems like he's the head of this private army looking thing, which is clearly so we can have some henchmen to fight, and they look really focused on tech with their armor and their weapons and their big giant robots. We've known about this since the reveal trailer, but I'm kind of getting sick of the huge tech-centric villains that we always get in superhero stuff, and I don't know if Kraven necessarily fits that aesthetic, though it seems like Sergei himself is pretty traditional while everyone around him uses all the crazy robots and gadgets, so that might be a good middle ground. Also, there's this Green Arrow looking guy later in the demo, so that gives me some hope. His motivation seems to be some pretty standard Kraven stuff. He's looking for someone who can fight him as an equal, and ends up going to New York to face off against the Spider-Man and the rest of New York's vigilantes and villains. On the island of Manhattan, it shows Black Cat, Prowler, Tombstone, the Spider-Man, as well as our first look at Yuri Watanabe as Wraith. I'm guessing that this is going to be a side mission since it was developed in a side mission in the DLC, so I don't think it's going to be a main story thing. But I like what we see of her design, and I think there's some potential when it comes to Yuri and Peter's relationship and exploring that throughout the story and how it changes with the black suit. It also shows the Raft, which seems to still house Vulture, Rhino, Doc Ock, and Kingpin. I'm not sure about the rest of the Sinister Six with Mr. Negative and Scorpion. They're probably there too. We just can't see it in the trailer. But the thing that really excites me is that we also see across the bay in Brooklyn is Lizard and Taskmaster, and for a split second we can see that Shocker is somewhere in Queens. It was basically a given that we would see other boroughs of New York be added to the map, which I'm really excited to see, and it seems like there might be some side missions and villain stories exclusive to those areas. And the gameplay demo that they showed immediately starts with showing a little bit of Queens. The last time we've been able to play in Queens in a Spider-Man game was in Ultimate Spider-Man back in 2005, so I'm really excited to be able to return to that area. We see a little bit of Midtown High School, which is traditionally the school that Peter went to. I just realized there might be a backpack in the first game that confirms that. I forgot that I didn't do any fact checking for this video, I'm sorry. And Peter might possibly be teaching there as part of his new job. Their mascot is the Tigers, which if you're a Pretty Much It fan, you're probably going crazy right now. Kraven's army, who are later called the Hunters, are tracking Lizard and show up at what seems like Dr. Connors' house before Peter bursts out from the basement wearing the holy shit, it's the black suit. Oh wow, they just showed it off like right away. Cool, thank God, I don't have to wait. This design is really cool. It's a really nice middle ground between the classic symbiote design and more modern takes. I've talked before about wanting the black suit to look more like a fabric and less scoopy, but I think I like the direction that they're going with the whites on the back of the hands being these little chevron arrow things instead of squares, and this really interesting texture in some places that looks really cool. It's almost like a second skin. I really dig it. I love how the eyes look and how they get more jagged when Peter gets angry, and I really like how at first glance the suit looks like a completely standard classic black suit. But if you look at it for long enough, you realize things like the proportions and the texture start to look a little bit off about it, which perfectly fits the story that it seems like they're trying to tell. I mean, I saw the YouTube thumbnail at first when I was off doing other stuff, and I was like, oh cool, the black suit looks normal, and I think that's pretty neat. I will admit, it is a little bit too goopy for my personal taste, and I'm not the biggest fan of the head on it. It looks like it's a helmet, and I wish it covered the base of his skull practical just a little bit more, but overall I still really like it, and if it really bugs me, there's probably going to be like 1,000 different suit options I can use instead, so who cares really? I do think though that this isn't going to be the only look for the symbiote. I'll get to it a little bit later, but it's entirely likely that this game's symbiote will have different looks throughout the game, with it growing and changing throughout Peter's arc. This little moment is really interesting to me. It looks like the symbiote fully encases Peter and is like thick and like almost fuzzy. Fuzzy's not the word. Fuzzy's not the right word, but it looks fuzzy before pulling back to reveal the real suit design. It's probably nothing, but something about it makes me think that there's something special to it, like some kind of mechanic or story moment involved. I can't quite figure it out yet though. I promise I will get to the bottom of it eventually. And then we're thrust right into seeing Symbiote Combat, complete with a new UI and everything. It's more or less the same as the last games, with the health, focus meter, combat counter, gadgets, and minimap, but now there's 2 new elements at the bottom labeled R1 and L1 with different icons in a circle. It looks like the symbiote abilities will work just like Miles' Venom Strike in his solo game, where holding L1 and pushing a face button will do a special move. Unlike Miles' game, however, this time it doesn't look like these abilities use any separate meter or focus, but instead they're always visible and there's a cooldown for each of them. The cooldowns seem long enough that you can't just spam them in combat, but also short enough that you could realistically use them pretty frequently. And the same applies for R1 with what looks like the ability to quickfire different gadgets like in the Batman Arkham games. I personally really like this change. I hated having to switch between gadgets on a separate wheel all the time. It stopped the flow of combat and there was just so much to keep track of, and I never switched back to the one I wanted to, so it was just kind of a pain for me. So if the gadgets are just limited to 4 quickfire options in your standard web shooters with R1, then I could see myself using them a lot more. We only see 2 gadgets for now, the one on the left, which the PlayStation blog calls the web grabber and we see later in the demo, and the one on top, which looks like a missile? What the fuck is Peter gonna call in, like an airstrike? Oh my god.
My resolution? Airstrikes. Bomb them. Bomb them. Keep bombing them. Bomb them again.
In terms of the UI, I think it's fine. Realistically, it's probably not the final version, just like how the first game's E3 demo looked completely different from the final game. I'm still not huge on the minimap sticking around. It never really served much of a purpose aside from the secret photos that you could do in the first game. And the new wheels take up kind of a lot of space, but there's probably going to be a way to make them auto hide or something while in combat, so I don't really care. The symbiote abilities all seem relatively similar to Miles' Venom Strike, but with a few little twists that make them stand out. There's this giant tendril punch, which knocks 2 hunters back and pins one of them to their truck. This one where Peter turns into a big blob of goop and slams into the group of hunters, sending them to the air. And this one where Peter grabs a group of hunters with the symbiote tendrils and slams them into the ground. And for this one, the symbiote covers Peter like a shield before parrying this glowing attack. It's been confirmed on the PlayStation blog that there are some attacks that can't be dodged and instead have to be parried. I am a sucker for a good perfect parry in combat, and this one looks pretty beefy from what we're seeing, so that plus the perfect dodge mechanic from the first game is going to be a really fun time. I'm serious, I love parries. I love them so much. If they make this a good parry, I swear it's going to be game of the year. But the symbiote is more than just some abilities. In general, Peter looks like he's hitting harder, not holding back as much when fighting in it. I love this move where he slams a hunter to the ground and they bounce back up for more. And the finisher animations are just straight up brutal. Like, oh my god, he's suffocating these people. Holy crap. It looks like the hunters have a lot of animal themed drones, and Peter fights this big robot dog thing. Is it like a tiger? I don't like fighting dogs in games, even if they're robots, so I'm just gonna say it's a tiger to make me feel better. Now that I think about it, I feel like Kraven's just like a big Horizon Zero Dawn fan. I noticed this move where Peter's punching the guy in the air and then swings around them before slamming them down. It looks like the dodge under mechanic from the first game where you press square and then circle, except now just in the air. The air combat was one of my favorite parts about the first game's combat, and I really love how much it looks like they expanded upon it here. There's also this moment where Peter shoots a web at one of the hunters and then slams him from wall to wall. It doesn't look like a big move or animation, but instead I think now we can better control the direction of how we throw enemies, and that has a ton of room to be a lot of fun. I like how the webs now look like they're made out of the symbiote, like some of the comics have them look. And while it would have been cool if the webs came out of the back of his palms, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Overall, the symbiote combat looks like it's going to be a ton of fun to play. I've said before that I wasn't sure if I wanted to see crazy Venom tendrils coming out of Peter, and while I think it's a little bit of a weird visual in the context of a movie or a comic, it's important to remember that the main point of a video game is to be fun to play. And so just like in Web of Shadows, if that feeling of, oh hey, that's kind of weird from a lore standpoint is the price we have to pay for fun combat in a Spider-Man game and making the black suit really feel powerful, that's something I'm willing to live with. And then we see the magic words. Switch to Miles. Obviously, in the story missions, switching between Peter and Miles will be contextual, but I'm assuming that in the open world, there will at least be some way to quickly switch between the two of them. I would like it to be with the push of a button, but if that's not possible and it's an easy thing you can do in the menu, that's fine with me. And then we see the other magic words, Super Slingshot. A slingshot move was something I always wanted in the first game, and it looks incredible here. Miles launches so far and gets so much speed, it seriously looks like so much fun. I wonder if it's just a contextual thing with these two little beams, or if you can slingshot from anywhere like in the Amazing Spider-Man Spider-Man 2 game, because that would add a ton of, holy shit, are those web wings? So yeah, they just added an entirely new traversal mechanic to this game in addition to the web swinging, but it looks super fast and fluid, and it's gonna be a ton of fun. For a second, we see this little wind tunnel that Miles flies into with a bunch of different rings, and I think it's really cool that he learned his lessons from his time on Fortnite Island. Is he still gritting back there? Yeah. We see some stealth gameplay from Miles, and he does this really cool thing where he makes his own web line to walk across, like in Arkham Origins. He does a perch takedown on 2 hunters at once and uses the new web grabber, which pulls 3 of them together. It seems like it's like the gravity well from his solo game, only this time it's not as insane of a concept. Just like Peter, it looks like his Venom Strike moves are on a cooldown now instead of with a meter. This one they're calling Thunderburst, and it looks like an updated version of the Venom Dash. The Venom Punch is now this electric blast called Chain Lightning, I think. The blog is not clear at all, which bounces between everyone in the room, and it looks like it cancels out the undodgeable attack that we saw earlier. And we don't see the other 2 abilities, but based on the icons, I'm gonna assume this is something similar to what Miles had in the first game, launching enemies around him up into the air, and then this is a parry like we saw Peter do. Miles walks through some corridors trying to find Lizard with Genki, who's controlling one of Kraven's drones. We see some of the cool lighting effects of the $500 PlayStation 5, and then Peter shows up in what is probably the sickest shot in any Spider-Man game ever. Oh my god, that's so cool. Now, if you haven't noticed, throughout this gameplay demo, Peter's kind of been, how do I say this nicely? An asshole. He's an asshole. He's angry. He's rude. He interrupts Miles. He talks down to him. He's almost nothing like the Peter that we know. And I absolutely love it. Especially now that we've seen how he talks to Miles in Miles' solo game, we can really see a difference in how the black suit's affecting him. Yuri is playing it so well, and it's always fun to see how different Spidey actors handle the symbiote. In Spectacular, it was very cold and menacing. This is very harsh and direct. And the 90s animated series played up the classic evil factor.
You can't escape me! I'll chase you to the ends of the earth!
They really played it up there. It very well might be just because of the symbiote, but I think there's something personal for Peter when it comes to Kraven and Lizard. We know Connors was working with Osborn to cure Harry, and so maybe Peter sees this threat to Connors as also a threat to his best friend's life, and that's why he's so emotional about it. I'm really interested to see how far into the game this demo takes place, because from the way that Peter's acting, based on what we know about the symbiote and other media, it seems like he's been wearing it for a good while. I don't think that this is the first time he's wearing it like the demo makes it out to believe. When Miles first sees Peter in the demo, he says the line,
"Hey man, new threats?"
but he doesn't react to anything else. Not the fact that the suit is a completely different color, not the fact that it's all goopy, not the creepy tendrils, nothing. The dude is basically just like, hey, what's up? Nice costume, my guy. And that makes me think it could be one of a few things. First, it might be just the editing of this gameplay demo. The E3 demo for the first game edited some lines around to make more sense on its own, and even made it seem like we were fighting Mr. Negative when in the main game we were fighting some random guy. And so it's entirely likely that the new threads line was added from earlier in the game just for this demo. Or maybe these entire segments are split up across the game and are just made to be one consistent set piece. It's hard to say for sure. The other possibility is that Peter's been bonded to the symbiote for a while, but he's kept it secret from Miles. Either because it has to do with Harry and maybe he stole it from Osborn, or because he felt the need to wear it to keep up with Miles, or whatever reason. And so up until now, he's been attached to the symbiote and used its powers, and only now is he embracing it as a fully black costume. Or the other possibility is that, like I mentioned before, this isn't the only design of the black suit we'll see. Maybe leading up to this point, Peter was wearing a version of the suit that was straight up just the new advanced suit but black, or a more cloth-looking suit, or some other kind of variation on it. It bonded to him through Harry, and Miles has known about it, and only now is he seeing its true form as a potentially dangerous symbiote. And so when Peter bursts out of the basement at the beginning of the demo, this is the first time everyone is seeing this new alien version of the black suit. But most importantly, the reason I think Peter's been wearing the symbiote for longer than it looks like is because if it really hasn't been that long, if it's really just been a day or 5 minutes and he's already acting like this and already gone full renegade Spider-Man, that wouldn't be as interesting story-wise. The symbiote story, in my opinion, is at its best when it's a gradual change in Peter's personality and dynamic, something that you don't notice right away until it's too late. So to have it just be that he puts on the suit and instantly becomes mean to everyone around him, I'm just gonna say that's kind of boring. And the writers at Insomniac are smart. They're good writers. They understand that. Peter and Miles chase after Lizard, who we never get a good look at, but from what we can see, I really love the design. The chase seems like a lot of fun. I love Peter zipping through the subway car with the web wings and the little air dodge he does. This whole set piece is basically just an Uncharted set piece, and that's not a bad thing. That's actually a very good thing. Peter and Miles save everybody, and holy shit, he just threw that guy on the ground. Oh my god, he's such a dick. I love it. And Miles starts to put the pieces together that something might be wrong with Peter. I've seen a lot of people talk about this idea that maybe Venom in this game isn't going to be Eddie Brock or Harry Osborn, but instead Peter. And that's an interesting idea that I hadn't thought of before, but I'm not really sure about it. It would definitely streamline the story and eliminate a lot of the bloat that you'd have to do Venom and the symbiote in one story. And it would really stress the relationship between Peter and Miles by having Peter go further down that path than we initially expected. And I think that for a moment, something like that will happen. Just like in Chip Zdarsky's Spider-Man life story where the symbiote takes over Peter a little bit too much and he goes full Venom mode for just a second, either for an extended set of missions or a boss fight with Miles where you have to stop him. I think that that's entirely likely and we'll see that for just a moment. But I think that having Peter be the main version of Venom in this game and never having them face off would be a missed opportunity. There's so much potential in having Peter fall to his lowest point because of his actions and then have to rise again and face the personification of his mistakes, which is fundamentally what Venom represents. You know, if Spider-Man is just turning into Venom, at that point that's just Spider-Man with teeth. It's not Venom, you know what I'm saying? A main aspect of a lot of symbiote stories is Peter going too far with the black suit and starting to embody Venom visually before snapping out of it and removing it. And so I could see Miles being the one to help him snap out of it before the symbiote is given to someone else to make them the true Venom. And so whether that Venom is Harry or a newly introduced Eddie Brock, we'll just have to see. Some might say that Eddie couldn't be Venom because he hasn't been introduced yet, but I think a lot of people forget how long these games are and the amount of time we'll have in the first half to potentially develop Eddie as a character. And if Eddie isn't Venom in this game, there's always the possibility that it could happen for a spin-off game later down the line. I've said it before and I'll say it again, even though I feel like I'm a broken record at this point. I really hope that this story doesn't fall into the trappings of the symbiote makes Peter evil. The best black suit stories always use Peter's own trauma and pain as a primary factor for his behavior, with the symbiote just adding fuel to his fire. If he's just an asshole when he wears a costume and then when he takes the costume off, everything's better, that's not interesting, fundamentally, you know? And I think after the death of May in the first game and learning that Harry's life is at stake, that could push the character in a way that we haven't seen before. It's hard to say from this gameplay demo, especially since we don't know how things might have been edited around, but I think that to try and retell the black suit storyline in a modern setting, but still let Peter absolve all responsibility when he takes off the suit would be pretty disappointing. I'm hoping that the people in Insomniac know that and understand that, and I think they do because they're pretty good writers. They know what they're talking about, and I'm hoping that they use the symbiote framing device to really dive deep into Peter as a character and the meaning of responsibility instead of just goop make you bad guy. Now, some longtime viewers of the channel might be saying, bro's a prophet. My man saw the future. Has anyone told you that you were a prophet, sir? You were dead on about the Connors part. Bro was right. Fire, fire. Coming back to this after the gameplay trailer is insane, knowing he's predicted a couple things already. No fucking way you just guessed the entire showcase and entire 3 years ahead of time. Oh my god, you predicted the lizard being larger. This is insane. Insomniac goes to okay, that's the fact that Insomniac watches the video. Check it. Check the whole story of the Furious 4 comes out. You keep being right, damn bro. I think Insomniac goes to royalties. You actually guessed the gameplay trailer came out straight from Lizard. 625. Hats off to you. You completely predicted the Spider-Man PS5 showcase. I don't know why I did that voice for that one. Back in 2019, I made a video where I talked about the direction I wanted the story to go in this next game. I had Peter in the black suit, him being a teacher, mentoring Miles, and the two of them having a falling out because of the symbiote, Kraven as a main villain, and the lizard as someone Kraven was hunting and Peter was trying to protect because Dr. Connors was working with Osborn to cure Harry. I also said a lot of other stupid shit in that video that there's no way they'll do. They're not gonna do Goblin yet. They're not ready for that. Was I stupid? I was stupid. I'm gonna be completely honest. When I made that video, this was my exact thought process. Oh man, that game was so cool. It looks like they're doing the black suit next. Huh, who's a good villain for Spider-Man to fight in the black suit? Well, Kraven's Last Hunt is a thing. Let's do Kraven. But it's kind of played out for Kraven to just come to fight Spider-Man. What's another animal guy he could try to fight? Well, there's a guy that's a big lizard. Maybe he's connected to the story with Harry somehow because he's a scientist. Also, Peter needs a new job. He should be a teacher because my favorite Spider-Man comics had him as a teacher. I should make content about this. Man, the year 2019 is just so much fun. And I think next year's gonna be even better. Is it pretty crazy how much is similar? Yeah, sure. Is it funny that every time there's a new trailer, my DMs get flooded with people calling me the second coming of Christ? Absolutely. Am I the second coming of Christ? I have no comment on that. Although if they add Gwen Stacy and randomly kill her off for no other reason besides the fact that it's comic accurate, then maybe I'll need some royalty checks or something. And before you ask, today's winning lottery numbers are... Overall, this game is looking to do what every good sequel should do. It's taking what worked in the first 2 games and then expanding on them with a bigger map, more in-depth combat mechanics, and completely new traversal. From where we're standing, it might not look like anything groundbreaking, it's not some redefinition of the entire open-world action game genre, it's not entirely rebuilding New York from the ground up using a new ultra-high fidelity engine or anything like that. A lot of people have sort of forgotten what a sequel is supposed to be, which is just more of the first game. I've made a lot of videos on what I want to see from this game, and that can come across as me saying if it doesn't have these things then the game will be garbage. But I very much don't believe in that sentiment, and I want to make it clear that that's not what I'm trying to do when I make these videos. Game design is an unbelievably complicated thing, and these products take years upon years to be made with hundreds of different people involved that are all working tirelessly and prioritizing different things. Having new combat, new traversal, even having 2 playable characters and making the map this much bigger is a huge achievement. Honestly, the fact that we're even getting a Spider-Man game that looks this good is a huge testament to the people at Insomniac who made it happen. So if you ask me, this game doesn't have to be revolutionary. It doesn't have to be built from the ground up or be some mind-blowingly religious experience or reinvent the wheel. This game doesn't have to do any of that. It's just Spider-Man 2. And if you ask me, that alone sounds sick as shit. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. If you like this video, be sure to like button and subscribe. By the time this video comes out, my partner Olivia is going to be graduating from grad school today, and she's in the other room, and she's going to yell at me for saying this, but I just want to brag about her because she's really cool, and I'm really proud of her. And everybody say congratulations in the comments. Special thanks to 21 Escalators, Ann's, Already Done It, Codemaster, Cabbage Boy, Cassidy Bond, Chicken McDoofus, Cosmic Tragedy, Dan the Dreamer Shill, DJ Ricky 08, Eden Kenna, Iron Ninja, Jake Selig, Jonah, Corey's Not Fresh, Lime Spice XL, Logan Triplet Films, Spectacular Clyde, Tim Neufeld, Troy Says By Erasure's Lame, Tyler Goodrich, Jesh Kapoor, Zachary Stonebreaker, Zero to Hero 148, and ZZ Toasty for being spectacular fanboys on my Patreon. This is Mentoria Boy 17 coming at you live. Be responsible, and I'll see you around.